Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make my new Loomigurumi mini ice cream cone. So it stands about 3.5 inches tall, and the one I'm going to be showing you in the tutorial today is this chocolate and vanilla one. And if you wanted to, there's tons of different ways that you can personalize it, different color choices and different ways you can make it. If you wanted to do just a solid ice cream color, you could do this. If you wanted to do each color on either side of the cone, you can do it that way. And with this other way here, I just did the outer edge in a different color. So the chain in the middle is all white, and then the outer stitches are all orange. So for these three, I did stuff them and close it off, but another option that you can do, which I think turns out really cute, is you can just skip the stuffing and then put this on the top of a pencil. So I think it would also work really well on a keychain, or there's just tons of different options. To make your ice cream cone, you're going to need a hook of some sort. So I'm going to be using the Rainbow Loom metal hook, but you can use a crochet hook or whatever you have on hand. I'm going to be using stuffing, so that is optional. If you wanted to put it on the end of a pencil, you wouldn't stuff it, but otherwise I would recommend stuffing it just for the cone section especially. You're going to need some clips or stitch markers, and then as far as my band counts, I used 86 white, 61 brown, and 56 tan. And the white and tan ones are Rainbow Loom. The tan ones came out of the camouflage pack, and then my brown ones that I used are from Bracelet Loops. I'm going to start with a chain of 34 bands, and it's going to alternate between white and brown. So it's going to start with 2 of each, and then it's going to go to 3 of each, 4 of each, 5 of each, and finally 6 white. So to make the chain, it's really quite easy. You're just going to take your first band, so I'm starting with white, and I'm going to triple this. So you just twist and loop it back on 2 times, and that's going to give you your 3 loops on your hook. I'm going to take my second white, take that tripled band, so the 3 loops have to slide on, get the other end back on. And then one at a time, I'm just going to add the bands, so I'm just going to pull through and back on. So I have 2 brown, and now I'm up to 3 white. And as you're forming this, if you pull down on your chain as you pull through, it is going to help from your hook getting hung up. Sometimes it does want to get snagged. So after my 3 white, I have 3 brown. And then I'm adding 1 of each color, so I have 4 white, and then 4 brown. And of course, if you wanted a different color option, you could change this. You can make one side a different color, or you could do it all in one color. And now I have 5 white, and then 5 brown. So as the spiral gets wider, that's why our colors have to get a little bit wider. And then lastly here I have 6 white. So it looks kind of funny, I think, before you get it all together. And then I'm going to take my clip, and with the 2 loops on my hook, I'm just going to attach the clip to those. The next thing we're going to do is make our single crochets into each one of the chains. So in the very first chain we're going to do 3 single crochets, but then in every other one we're going to just do 2. So the colors are always going to match up. You're going to need a total of 41 white and 28 brown. So I have the pattern laid out here for you. I am just going to start it with you, and then I'll let you finish it on your own. So we are going to start back where we began with the tripled band. So you want to put that tripled band on your hook, make sure you go through all 3 loops. And as I said, the colors are always going to match up. So we have a white chain, so we're going to be doing white stitches. So just this very beginning one, we're going to do 3 in, just to try and make that point at the top of the spiral. So you're going to pull through. Back on, you have just 2 loops, one pulls through the other, and then from front to back, pushing through those 3 loops a second time, comes through, back on. This time you're going to have 3 loops, one through the other 2, and then back through one more time. I know it's definitely going to be tight since that's a tripled band. Pull through, one through the other 2. Then you're moving over to your next chain. Just make sure that you're keeping this completely straight and smooth, and you're always going under 2 loops from front to back. So we're doing just 2 single crochets into each of the next chains. So there's 2 in that one. Next we have brown, and normally when I change colors I do a slip stitch, but in this case I'm not doing any slip stitches. So just like a regular single crochet, I have my 3 loops, and even though they're different colors, one's pulling through the other 2. Back through that same chain for my second brown, and then I have another brown. And you will definitely notice as you start to form this, it's going to really curl around. So just try your best to keep this section that you're forming out of your way. Now we're on to white. Again, I'm not doing any slip stitches. So 2 in each. And then here's my third white. You can see this is really starting to curl around. And now onto 3 brown. So really that's all there is to it. You're just doing 2 in each. No slip stitches. I think the hardest part is just combating your section that's forming here. So you're just going to continue around doing 2 in each and make sure you're matching up your colors. So you can go ahead and pause here, finish doing that, and I will see you back here shortly. The next thing that we're going to do is take this piece that we've been forming, and we want to make it into that nice tight spiral shape. So to do that, we're going to do front post single crochets, and then also we're going to do some tacking. So I have a total of 18 white bands and 14 brown. So I am going to be starting where my tripled band is. I want the same side to be facing me as I did when I was forming these outer edges here, doing the single crochet, so it's actually the inside. I'm ignoring the first tripled band. I'm going to go into the next opening here, the next chain, and to do a front post single crochet, what you do is take your hook, you just push through and then in the very next chain you're going to come back. So what that does is it causes this in-between section, which is considered the post, to pop up on your hook. So I'm going to actually start with brown since this is sort of in between white and brown. So it's just going to pull through, get the other end back on. You have your 2 loops and one through the other. Then you're always going to be going back out that same chain that you had just come in. So push out, and I am going to tack this very first section. So if you look here at the beginning, you have your stitches on this underneath section, and a stitch is the little sideways V. What I'm going to do is just go through the inner loop of the stitch, and then I'm going to come back out just like in the regular front post. I'm going to come back to the inside in the next chain over. I'm going to take a second brown band, so it's going to pull through, back on. You have your 3 loops and one through the other 2. So now if you look to the outside here, you can see how this is tacked, and this is going to be the very top of our ice cream part. So now we're going to do 2 front posts in between where we don't do any tacking. So I'm pushing out through that same chain and coming back in through the next, and since we're in between here, I am going to switch to white. So again, I'm not doing any slip stitches. I have the 3 loops, one through the other 2. So that was my first one without tacking. Doing it again, so getting that post on my hook. I'm using white again. And now in this third one, I'm going to tack every third one from now on. I need to go to my outside section here. Now you can see in the very first stitch, that's where we had tacked it there. What I'm going to do is count 4 stitches over. So I'm not counting the one that's tacked, but I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the 4th one. It's actually my last white one before it changes to brown. Pick up that inner loop, and now I'm coming back through the next chain over, and I am going to use a white band again. So pull through, back on, one through the other 2. Again, if you flip to the other side, you should start to see how it's going to spiral around here. So now I'm doing 2 front posts where I'm not doing any connecting. So out and back in. This time I'm going to switch to brown. So that's 1, another brown, 2, and then here's where I'm going to tack it. So you can see where we did it the last time. We're going to count again 4 stitches over. So 1, 2, 3. Again, it's going to be the last brown stitch before we switch to white. On this outer edge, just that inner loop. Take your chain, come back out, and then once again I'm going to use brown. And now I have 2 more without tacking. So I have a white, another white, push out through. Again, I'm going to count 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Grab that inner loop, and then come back in through the next chain. I have another white, so hopefully you're getting the concept of it, and you should see your spiral pattern here starting to grow really nicely. We have the next 2 that aren't going to connect to anything, just their regular front post. So there's 1, and then in the next one I'm going to change to brown here. and then push out. Again, I'm going to count 4 spaces, or 4 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, 4, inner loop, and push back out. And then the next stitch here is brown. Now I have 2 regular front posts, and since we're in the brown chains, I'm using brown. The next one, push out, find my next spot to tack. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's my last brown before I'm switching to white. Push back out, and I'm going to use a white band this time. I mean, truthfully, it probably doesn't much matter which one you choose. You're really not going to see it very much. Next 2 front posts, I'm going to use white. So we're kind of getting down to the end here. Push out through. Again, I'm going to count over 4 spots. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And come back through. So since we're in the white, we're doing white. Again, 2 front posts. First one I'm using white. And then since we're changing colors here, I'm going to use brown. Push out. And now this time I'm actually going to count 5. So I'll count from the next one over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be the first brown here. Come back in my chain. And now the next 2. Push out. And once again, I'm going to count 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, have brown here. Now I have 2 more. Counting 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My last 2 front posts that are not connecting to anything. And then that leaves me with 1 band left here. Again, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going through the last inner loop here. Coming in the very end chain. And now what I'm going to do is, since I already have a clip here, I'm just going to take this loose band that's on my hook and attach that to the clip. So you might need to do a little bit of adjusting. There's a little bit of wiggle room if you want to try and spin your spiral tighter or the opposite direction to make it a little bit looser. But in general, you should have a pretty nice spiral shape, and your colors should basically line up with one another. The next thing that we're going to do is to build 1 more row out from the base so we can make a solid foundation to make our cone. And when we do that, we're also going to be tacking down every other one of these stitches from the inner loop. So we want our base here to have a stitch count of 12, and you're going to count from the one that's on your clip. So actually, let me remove that. I'm not removing both, just the inner loop. Leave that outer loop with the clip on it. So the one that's on your hook is going to count as 1. So then keep counting around, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the 12th one is actually this white stitch that's right next to the brown. So I'm going to take my hook and go underneath that. And then, as I said, I am going to pick up the inner loop. So this first white one here next to the brown, I'm going to go through that inner loop. And then just to start here at the beginning, I have this loose band that I'm going to pick up. And I'm going to use white. So I'm going to pull through everything on my hook. Actually, I'm not going to pull through everything. I'm going to leave that one band left on my hook. Get the other back on. I have 3 loops, one through the other 2. So I'm moving over to the brown here. Now I'm going to skip the first brown. Since I'm only tacking down every other stitch, go through just that inner loop, take my brown, pull through, back on 3 loops, one through the other 2. And I'm moving over to my next one, and on the outside edge we're skipping 1. So go through that inner loop, next one, skip. And the reason that I'm tacking it down is it just looks better. Otherwise, it looks like you have your ice cream sort of winging out from the top of your cone. So next, skip this one. And then here's our last brown stitch. And on the edge, we're going to the last one. And then we're skipping the first white. And you should find that the one that you're going under, your every other one, should line up pretty well. It should be pretty straightforward from where your hook's going under. So skip that one to this one. And then when we're done this, we're going to have a stitch count of 12 to start the top of our cone. So here's my last one. And then once again, I'm going to take my clip and attach. So you should feel it should be pretty nice and solid. In rows 1 and 2 of your cone, you're going to need 12 bands for each row. And I'll do the first row with you, but then I'll go ahead and let you do the second row on your own. So I'm going under my first stitch here. It's white. And I think I am going to do a slip stitch here, so I will pull through everything. I have just the 2 loops, one through the other. Now my next stitch I'm going under is brown. And then for the rest of this row, it should be really easy. I think we're done all the hard parts. And pretty soon, probably after I do these 2 rows, I'm going to add some stuffing. Honestly, for the top part of the cone, it's pretty solid, so I would say the stuffing would be optional for that, but it's the bottom part of the cone that I think needs some extra support. So here's my last one where my clip is. And I did decide to use this lighter tan only because I had brown in the ice cream section. Now, as I said, I am going to let you go ahead and do this second row on your own, but I just would like to point out that at the very beginning here, since we did do a slip stitch, there's a little thing that may look like a stitch. It's more vertical than horizontal. That's not a true stitch. That was formed from doing our slip stitch. So you want to go to the next one over, and that's actually going to be the first stitch in the next row. So you can go ahead and finish doing that next row, and I will see you back here soon. Now I'm going to add a little bit of stuffing before I do my next row. So you definitely need just a small amount, and you want to push it up into the top, but don't shove up so much that you're making the rows split apart, and you don't want to see the stuffing coming out in between the stitches. So you will have the opportunity to add more stuffing when your cone grows, but the opening is going to continue to get smaller. In row 3 of the cone, you're going to need 9 bands, and we are going to do some decreases. So wherever I have a clip, that means a decreases or 2 stitches that are going together. So the pattern is 2 singles and a decrease, and you're going to repeat that 3 times in total. So our first 2 stitches are getting regular single crochets, and I am changing up the way that I'm going to show you how to do a decrease. This is completely new. I can't guarantee that any other designer doesn't do it that way, but this is new for me. I kind of had an aha moment, and I figured out a new way to do decreases that I think is much more seamless. So what you're going to do is you're going to put the next 2 stitches together. I do find if you go through just the outer loop, it makes it a lot nicer. And usually the way that I was teaching it is you go through the first outer loop, pull back towards yourself, go through the second outer loop. And it's that pulling back that pulls the bands and makes it more visible within your creation. So I was working with this for quite a while, and I came up with this new method that I really like. So what you're going to do is we're still working in just the outer loops, but we're going to skip the first outer loop. We're going to go into the second outer loop. I'm just going to push my hook through, and then I'm just going to very slightly pull this back towards myself, and then I'm going to push back through the first outer loop, the first stitch's outer loop. So you can see I'm now under both of the outer loops, but it's straight through. It's not pulled back and looped over and then through. So hopefully that makes sense. Anyone that's been doing this for a while should be familiar with what I'm talking about. And I have my 3 loops, one through the other 2. So now if you look, it's very seamless. You're not going to have any large gaps, and it's not going to look all choppy there. So I have 2 more singles. Again, the next one's a decrease, so ignore the first stitch for a moment, go in the second stitch, outer loop, pull back towards yourself, but we're not looping over, and then we're just pushing right through. And if you look on the side, it should look like an X, the way that your bands form. I don't know if you can tell that or not, but it makes like a little X. Pull through. And then one more set. We have 2 singles. And then you should have 2 stitches left. I'm going to take out this clip just so you can get a better view at what I'm doing. So outer loop, push through. You're doing that in the second one over. Pull back, pick up the first outer loop, pull through, one through the other 2. I'm going to attach my clip. In row 4, you're going to need 9 bands. We're doing 1 single crochet into each stitch, so I'm going to let you do that on your own, and I will see you back here in a minute. In row 5, we're doing some more decreases, so you're going to need 6 bands, and we're doing a decrease in every other stitch. So I should note I did add just a tiny bit more stuffing, and you can go ahead and do that whenever you feel it's necessary. So the very first stitch we have a regular single, and then again the next 2 together. So I'm skipping the next stitch for the moment, outer loop of that next stitch, pull back, pick up the outer loop of the first. Next one gets a regular single, decrease in the next, another single, and then again let me just get my clip out of the way. You should have 2 stitches left, skipping that next one, grab the loop, next loop, and then once again it's going to attach my clip. In row 6 you need 6 bands, and once again it's 1 single crochet into each stitch, so go ahead and do that and I will meet you back here in a minute. In row 7, if you can even really call it a row, we have just 2 bands. I'm going to do 2 more decreases and then I'm just going to tie it off. So now is your last chance to add any little tiny bit of stuffing that you might need. And what I'm going to do is go in the first 2 stitches, I'm going to do a decrease. So I'm just pushing through that second stitch over and going through the first. And let me just remove that clip. And then again skipping the next one, going into that next one around, then picking up the first. This time I'm going to pull through everything on my hook, and then I'm going to make a nice and tight slip knot. I see little pieces of stuffing poking out. And so the last thing I need to do is to just hide this loop. So I'm just going to reach from the outside, I'm going to push up right next to that, and I'm going to pull that through. Whoops, I lost it. Just going to pull it all the way through so it's nice and flat, and then I'll just reach a little bit higher up. I'm trying really hard not to get the stuffing to come out, and pull that all the way through to the inside. And again, you can do a little bit of reshaping to try and get that nice point at the bottom. And then your little ice cream cone is complete. I hope that everyone loves their new mini Loomigurumi ice cream cones. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook. You can post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page. I really love to see what everyone's doing. And please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that way you can stay up to date when I have new tutorials available. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please post your comments and your pictures there too. If you do post on Instagram, don't forget to tag me, and you can feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!